The realm of dreams holds a profound and mysterious place within the depths of the psyche, acting as a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. When a major life shift approaches, the nature of dreams changes noticeably, taking on a vivid, symbolic, and often disturbing quality that beckons the individual to pay attention. Dreams, in their essence, are the language of the unconscious mind. They speak in images, symbols, and metaphors rather than in straightforward narratives or logical explanations. As such, when the psyche senses an impending transformation or upheaval in the life of an individual, it begins to communicate through these symbolic representations with greater urgency and clarity. The ordinary, mundane dreams that might have once reflected the day's events or minor concerns become replaced by imagery that is powerful, archetypal, and often unsettling. This shift in dream content is not random, but a deliberate expression from the unconscious, seeking to awaken the conscious mind to the processes taking place within. In times leading up to significant personal change, dreams often become a theater for the archetypes, the primordial images and patterns embedded deep within the collective unconscious, shared by all humanity. These archetypal images emerge in dreams as figures such as the wise old man, the great mother, the hero, or the trickster. They also manifest as symbols like bridges, thresholds, journeys, death, rebirth, or other natural cycles. The dreamer may encounter vast oceans, dark forests, descending or ascending staircases, or even encounters with strangers whose faces remain inscrutable. These elements are not accidental or meaningless. They carry messages that transcend the literal and speak directly to the soul. They signal that the psyche is in the midst of a process far greater than everyday concerns, a process of transformation, of psychological death and renewal. The intensity and sometimes disturbing nature of these dreams arise precisely because the psyche is preparing the ego to confront realities it might otherwise avoid. The ego, which represents the conscious sense of identity, prefers stability and coherence. It seeks to maintain the familiar narrative of self, the comfortable patterns of behavior and thought. However, the unconscious does not cater to the ego's preferences. Instead, it compels it to confront aspects of the self and the world that have been ignored, repressed, or unacknowledged. The unsettling dream imagery acts as a catalyst for this confrontation, presenting material that the ego cannot easily assimilate without undergoing change. This is why dreams before major life shifts can be intense, strange, and sometimes frightening. They challenge the ego's complacency and signal that a deeper journey must be undertaken. One of the most striking features of these preparatory dreams is their symbolism of death and rebirth. It is not uncommon for the dreamer to experience imagery of dying, falling, or disintegration, followed by themes of emergence, renewal, or transformation. This symbolism corresponds to the psychic reality that before the self can move forward into a new phase, something essential must come to an end. It is a process of psychological alchemy, where the old self must be dissolved in order for a new self to emerge. Such dreams express the profound truth that growth and transformation require letting go and surrendering to the unknown. The dream landscape during this time often feels like a liminal space, a threshold between worlds. The dreamer might find themselves standing at the edge of a cliff, crossing a bridge, entering a dark forest, or passing through a door that leads into the unknown. These liminal images are powerful indicators that the psyche is navigating the borderlands between the old order and a new possibility. They invite the dreamer to acknowledge the transition and to prepare for the uncertainties that lie ahead. In this sense, the dream becomes a sacred passage, a rite of initiation into a deeper understanding of self and life. Moreover, these dreams tend to be rich with paradox and contradiction. The unconscious does not communicate in the clear-cut language of logic, but rather in opposites and enigmas. A single dream might contain elements of both destruction and creation, light and darkness, fear and hope. This paradoxical quality reflects the complexity of transformation itself, which is never a linear or simple process. It is a dance between opposing forces within the psyche that must be held in tension until a new balance is found. The dream invites the dreamer to embrace this complexity and to recognize that transformation requires the capacity to hold conflicting truths simultaneously. It is important to understand that these symbolic dreams do not serve merely to foreshadow external events, but more importantly, they reveal the internal shifts taking place within the psyche. They are not fortune-telling visions, but rather expressions of the psyche's attempt to integrate unconscious material into consciousness. Through these dreams, the unconscious is guiding the individual toward greater self-awareness, encouraging the exploration of hidden fears, desires, and potentials. They open a door to the inner world, providing insights that, if heeded, can ease the passage through change by illuminating the unconscious dynamics at play. Often, the dreamer may find that these dreams contain figures or motifs that seem unfamiliar or even alien, reflecting parts of the self that have been unknown or neglected. This encounter with the unfamiliar is a necessary step in the process of individuation, the coming into being of the true self. The psyche is drawing attention to the fact that the existing identity is incomplete, and that to move forward, these neglected aspects must be acknowledged and integrated. The dream thus acts as a mirror, reflecting back to the individual the deeper layers of their being that call for attention and transformation. At times, the vividness of these dreams can be overwhelming. They may linger in memory long after waking, leaving the individual with a sense of urgency or even dread. This intensity is a sign that the unconscious is working tirelessly to break through the barriers of the ego's defenses. Rather than seeking to frighten, these dreams strive to awaken. The more one resists or suppresses these messages, the more persistent and forceful the dreams may become. It is as though the psyche insists on being heard, demanding a conscious response to the inner need for change. The symbolism present in these dreams often draws on natural cycles and mythic themes that have resonated across cultures and epochs. The motifs of death and rebirth, the descent into darkness, followed by emergence into light, the hero's journey through trials. These are universal symbols that express fundamental truths about the human condition. The psyche uses these archetypal images precisely because they are embedded in the collective unconscious, and thus carry a resonance that transcends the personal. They connect the dreamer to the larger story of humanity's ongoing quest for meaning and wholeness. To engage with these dreams requires a certain courage and openness. It demands a willingness to sit with discomfort and uncertainty, to explore the shadowy recesses of the self without immediate judgment or fear. It is a process of becoming a witness to one's own inner transformations, recognizing that the path to wholeness often passes through darkness and dissolution. The dream, in this light, is a guide and companion, illuminating the way even when the destination is unclear. In this preparatory phase before a major life shift, dreams serve as a profound invitation to embark on an inward journey. They call forth the explorer within, the part of the self that is willing to venture beyond the familiar and into the mysteries of the soul. By attending to the symbolic language of dreams, the individual can gain insight into the unconscious currents shaping their life and begin to align with the deeper rhythms of transformation. The dream is not merely a nighttime curiosity, but a vital portal through which the psyche reveals its readiness for change. The process reflected in these symbolic dreams is not simply psychological, but spiritual in nature. It touches on the very essence of what it means to be human, to grow, to suffer, to die and be reborn anew. The imagery that appears is a testament to the soul's resilience and capacity for renewal, even in the face of chaos and loss. Dreams before a major life shift remind us that beneath the surface of everyday life, profound changes are unfolding, and the psyche, with its timeless wisdom, is guiding us toward the next stage of our existence. This unfolding transformation within the dream realm can be seen as a sacred dialogue between the conscious mind and the deeper self. As the images and symbols arise, they offer clues and keys to understanding the hidden dynamics at work. They reveal the fears that must be faced, the attachments that must be released, and the potentials that await realization. By listening attentively to this dream language, the individual participates in a co-creative process with the unconscious, allowing the mystery of the psyche to lead the way toward renewal. Thus, the vivid, symbolic, and sometimes disturbing dreams that emerge before a major life shift are not to be feared or dismissed. They are the psyche's way of preparing the ego for the profound work of transformation. Through these dreams, the soul signals that the time has come to embark on a journey into the unknown, to shed the old and welcome the new, and to embrace the fullness of one's being with courage and humility. The dream becomes both the herald and the companion of the great passage, illuminating the darkness with the light of deeper understanding. When the psyche approaches a major shift in life, a profound sense of disorientation and inner conflict often begins to manifest. This experience is neither random nor superficial. It is a deep, necessary upheaval that signals the dismantling of previously held beliefs, values, and ways of being. What once felt stable and secure starts to lose its grounding, leaving the individual in a state of inner turmoil. This turmoil arises because the structures that once supported identity and meaning no longer suffice, no longer reflect the evolving self. The familiar maps that guided thought, feeling, and action are being called into question, and this process feels like a dissolution of the self as it was once known. The sensation of disorientation is not merely a psychological inconvenience. It is a fundamental stage in the process of transformation. When life's previous patterns no longer serve growth or authenticity, the psyche naturally withdraws its energy from these patterns, causing them to lose their hold. This withdrawal, however, is experienced subjectively as emptiness, loss, and confusion. The ego, which strives for coherence and control, finds itself bereft of familiar anchors and struggles to orient itself within a shifting landscape. This struggle generates anxiety, restlessness, and sometimes despair. Yet these experiences are essential. They are the chaotic crucible in which the old self is broken down so that the new self may emerge. Inner conflict also arises during this time because of the tension between the known and the unknown, the past and the future, the comfortable and the frightening. The ego clings to what is familiar and resists change, fearing the uncertainty and vulnerability that transformation demands. At the same time, there is an unconscious drive pushing toward growth and individuation, a movement toward wholeness that cannot be ignored. This tension creates a psychic battleground, where opposing forces vie for dominance. The individual may feel torn between staying in the old safe patterns or stepping into the unknown possibilities that beckon. This internal conflict is not a flaw or failure, but an intrinsic aspect of the human journey towards self-realization. During this phase, the world itself often seems out of joint. Relationships that once felt secure may become strained or dissolve, career paths may falter, and previously held values may feel empty or irrelevant. The external environment reflects the internal disarray. The individual may find themselves questioning their purpose, identity, and direction in life. This questioning, though painful, is an invitation to deeper self-exploration and honesty. It is a call to confront what has been avoided or suppressed, and to re-evaluate the foundations upon which one's life has been built. The experience of emptiness is particularly significant in this context. It is not a mere absence or void, but a pregnant space, a holding place for new possibilities. Emptiness before a life shift is akin to the dark soil that nourishes the seed. Though it may feel desolate, it contains the potential for growth and renewal. The psyche uses this emptiness to loosen attachments and old identifications that no longer serve the individual's evolution. In doing so, it prepares the ground for the emergence of a more authentic, integrated self. This process is rarely smooth or linear. It often involves cycles of despair and hope, confusion and clarity, contraction and expansion. The individual may feel caught in a liminal state, neither fully rooted in the past, nor fully oriented toward the future. This in-between space can be profoundly unsettling, but is also a threshold of transformation. It requires patience, courage, and a willingness to endure uncertainty. The psyche is asking for a surrender, not a giving up, but a letting go of control and preconceived notions about who one must be. Inner conflict may also manifest as a confrontation with the shadow, the repressed or disowned aspects of the self. As old structures crumble, these hidden parts often rise to the surface, demanding acknowledgement and integration. The ego's resistance to this confrontation can exacerbate the sense of confusion and turmoil. However, facing the shadow is crucial for genuine transformation. Without this confrontation, the old patterns simply reassert themselves, or the individual fragments under the pressure of unresolved conflict. The sense of disorientation can be likened to the process of entering a labyrinth without a clear path. The individual may feel lost, stumbling in the dark, unsure which way to turn. Yet, this is precisely the journey the psyche calls for. The journey inward. In the labyrinth, One must relinquish reliance on external landmarks and instead cultivate inner awareness and trust. This journey is both terrifying and necessary because it dismantles illusions and false identities, allowing the true self to be discovered. It is also important to recognize that this inner turmoil is not a sign of weakness or pathology, but a sign of life itself. The psyche's movement toward wholeness requires breaking down what is false and worn out. Like the phoenix rising from its ashes, transformation demands that the old self die. The chaos and confusion experienced are the fire of purification. Those who resist or attempt to bypass this stage often find themselves stuck, unable to grow or move forward authentically. The disorientation that accompanies a major life shift also affects the body and emotions. Physical symptoms such as fatigue, tension, or restlessness may arise, reflecting the deep inner work underway. Emotions can swing unpredictably, from despair to fleeting joy, from fear to moments of clarity. This emotional turbulence is part of the psyche's process of rebalancing and realigning. It signals that transformation is not merely intellectual but involves the whole being. In this vulnerable state, the individual may seek meaning and support. The search for meaning becomes paramount because the old frameworks no longer provide answers. This quest often leads to spiritual or existential questions about purpose, connection, and the nature of self. The disorientation and inner conflict thus become gateways to deeper wisdom and understanding. Through this crucible, the individual is invited to cultivate new values and orientations that are more aligned with their emerging self. The process is also deeply solitary. While relationships and community remain important, much of the inner work of transformation is a solitary journey. It requires moments of silence, reflection, and solitude to confront the complexities within. The psyche demands authenticity, and this cannot be achieved through external validation or distraction. The individual must turn inward, facing the disorientation and conflict with honesty and compassion. It is common during this time for the individual to experience a crisis of identity. The question, "Who am I?" arises with unprecedented urgency. The old answers no longer suffice, and the psyche pushes toward discovering a more authentic self, beyond social roles, expectations, and conditioned beliefs. This crisis is a pivotal moment in the process of individuation, the emergence of a self that is whole, integrated, and unique. It is a call to step into one's own truth, even if it means breaking with the past. The inner conflict may also manifest as a conflict between the desire for security and the call for freedom. The ego, conditioned by years of habit and socialization, fears the uncertainty that freedom entails. Yet the deeper self longs for liberation from constricting patterns and false identities. This tension is a dynamic force propelling transformation. The individual learns to navigate the paradox of needing both safety and growth, structure and spontaneity. In the midst of this turmoil, the psyche also reveals its creativity. New ideas, insights, and possibilities often emerge from the chaos. The disintegration of old structures creates space for novel configurations of self and life. This creative emergence is a vital aspect of transformation, demonstrating that destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. Throughout this process, the role of patience and trust cannot be overstated. Transformation unfolds according to its own timing, often beyond the control of the conscious mind. The individual is called to surrender to the unfolding mystery, to trust that the disorientation and conflict are part of a larger, purposeful process. This trust is not blind optimism but a deep inner knowing that the psyche's movement is toward greater wholeness. The experience of disorientation and inner conflict before a major life shift is thus a profound and sacred stage in the journey of becoming. It marks the death of the old and the gestation of the new. It challenges the individual to confront fear, loss, and uncertainty with courage and openness. In doing so, it prepares the ground for transformation that is authentic, lasting, and deeply nourishing to the soul. This phase is not a detour or a setback, but an integral part of the path towards self-realization and fulfillment. The emergence of the shadow is a crucial and inevitable aspect of the psyche's preparation before a major life shift. The shadow, that hidden and often disowned part of the self, represents the aspects we have rejected, suppressed, or denied, qualities and impulses deemed unacceptable by our conscious identity or by societal norms. When a profound transformation approaches, these shadow elements intensify, demanding acknowledgement and integration. This process is not comfortable. It is often accompanied by discomfort, confusion, and resistance. Yet it is indispensable for true growth, for without facing the shadow, any transformation remains superficial and fragmented. The shadow is a natural and necessary counterpart to the conscious self. It contains everything that consciousness refuses to admit: the repressed desires, the unrecognized fears, the unacceptable impulses, and the qualities that conflict with the ego's ideal image. These shadow elements do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Rather, they gather strength in the unconscious, shaping behavior and perception in subtle and sometimes destructive ways. The psyche in its wisdom brings these elements to the surface before a major shift, so that they may be confronted openly and integrated into the whole self. This intensification of the shadow before a transformation is a sign that the psyche demands wholeness, not perfection. The ego often strives to present a polished, idealized version of the self, seeking approval and avoiding discomfort. However, the shadow embodies the parts of ourselves that do not fit this ideal: anger, jealousy, vulnerability, greed, selfishness, shame, and other qualities we might label as negative. The psyche's insistence on revealing these parts is an invitation to authenticity. It says, in effect, that only by embracing the totality of our being, light and dark, strength and weakness, can we move forward into a deeper and more integrated existence. The shadow's intensification can manifest in various ways. Internally, one might experience heightened emotional turbulence, unexpected outbursts of anger, bouts of sadness, or waves of anxiety. These emotions may seem disproportionate to external circumstances, revering their roots in unconscious conflicts. The individual may feel restless or unsettled, sensing parts of themselves surfacing that they do not recognize or understand. Dreams may also reflect shadow material, presenting figures or themes that provoke discomfort, but hold valuable messages about repressed aspects. Often the shadow presents itself through projections, when we see in others the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. Before a major life shift, these projections may become more frequent and intense, creating interpersonal conflicts or revealing deeper relational dynamics. The psyche uses these projections as mirrors, showing us what lies hidden within. Recognizing and owning these projections is a critical step toward integration. It requires humility and courage to see one's own shadow reflected in another, without judgment or defensiveness. The process of shadow integration is fundamentally a process of self-acceptance. It involves moving beyond simplistic notions of good and bad to embrace complexity and nuance within the self. This journey is not about indulging destructive impulses, but about understanding their origins, meanings, and roles within the psyche. By bringing unconscious material into consciousness, the individual gains the freedom to choose how to relate to these aspects, rather than being unconsciously controlled by them. Shadow work is often experienced as a confrontation with one's own darkness. It can feel like facing one's demons, a daunting and humbling task. The ego resists this confrontation because it threatens the familiar identity and exposes vulnerabilities. Yet the psyche does not allow this resistance to last indefinitely. It pressures the individual to engage with the shadow, sometimes through crises, breakdowns, or intense emotional experiences. These moments of crisis are not signs of failure but invitations to deeper healing and transformation. The shadow also holds the key to creativity and vitality. Paradoxically, the rejected parts of ourselves often contain great energy and potential. When integrated, these energies can be transformed into sources of strength, insight, and authenticity. The shadow is not simply a repository of negativity, but a reservoir of untapped possibilities. By embracing it, the individual expands their capacity for empathy, resilience, and wholeness. This process of integration is ongoing and lifelong. The shadow does not disappear once and for all. It continues to arise as the individual evolves and encounters new challenges. The readiness of the psyche before a major life shift is an especially intense phase, but it reflects a broader pattern of ongoing self-discovery and growth. The individual learns to live with complexity, holding light and shadow in dynamic balance. Importantly, The shadow's emergence before transformation serves a protective function. By confronting and integrating shadow material, the psyche prevents fragmentation or regression. It ensures that the new self that emerges is not merely a rearrangement of surface traits, but a genuinely expanded and integrated being. Without this work, transformation can be superficial, leaving the individual vulnerable to repeating old patterns or succumbing to inner conflicts. The shadow's intensification also reveals the deep interconnection between individual and collective psychology. Many shadow aspects are shaped by cultural, familial, and societal forces. The individual's shadow often contains internalized prejudices, fears, and traumas inherited from their environment. Transformation, thus, involves not only personal healing, but also a broader engagement with collective shadow material. By working through their own shadow, individuals contribute to the healing of the larger social body. This collective dimension explains why shadow work can be challenging and why resistance is common. Confronting shadow means facing uncomfortable truths, not only about oneself, but also about the society and culture one inhabits. It involves questioning norms, values, and beliefs that have been accepted without scrutiny. The psyche's call to wholeness is therefore also a call to authenticity and integrity in the wider world. As the shadow becomes more visible before a major life shift, it is essential to cultivate self-compassion and patience. The process is not about judgment or self-criticism, but about understanding and acceptance. The individual learns to become an observer of their own inner world, noticing the shadow without shame or fear. This mindful awareness creates the space for healing and transformation. Support from others can be invaluable during this time. Trusted relationships, therapy, or spiritual practice can provide safe containers in which shadow material can be explored and integrated. These supports offer validation and guidance, helping the individual navigate the sometimes turbulent waters of inner change. The intensification of the shadow is ultimately a call to authenticity. It demands that the individual embrace their whole self, including those parts that have been hidden or denied. This embrace is the foundation of genuine transformation, allowing the self to emerge renewed, whole, and free. It is a journey from fragmentation to integration, from fear to courage, from illusion to truth. In this light, the shadow is not an enemy to be conquered, but a vital ally. In the journey of becoming, its presence before a major life shift is a profound revelation from the psyche, signaling that the path to growth lies through acceptance, integration, and love of the whole self. This journey, though challenging, opens the way to a richer, deeper, and more authentic life. The process of transformation that precedes a major life shift often calls for a profound reconciliation of opposites within the psyche. This reconciliation is a fundamental movement toward wholeness, wherein the individual must confront and integrate polarities that have long been experienced as conflicting or mutually exclusive. These opposites, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, order and chaos, exist within each person and within the broader human experience. The tension between them creates dynamic energy, which when consciously embraced can lead to growth, healing, and a deeper sense of unity. At the heart of this process is the understanding that human beings are not simple or one-dimensional. We embody complexity and contradiction. To live authentically means to hold and balance these opposites without dissolving into either extreme. Before a major life shift, the psyche often highlights these inner polarities more starkly, bringing them into awareness with greater intensity. This heightened awareness serves as both challenge and opportunity, inviting the individual to move beyond black and white thinking and embrace a more nuanced and integrated way of being. The reconciliation of opposites begins with the recognition that the binary divisions we impose on experience are often artificial constructs of the ego mind. These dualities serve practical purposes in daily life, helping to organize reality into manageable categories. Yet, at a deeper level, these opposites are complementary aspects of a greater whole. For example, light cannot exist without darkness. One defines and gives meaning to the other. Similarly, the conscious mind is illuminated by the unconscious, and the masculine is enlivened by the feminine. The psyche's call to integrate these opposites before a major life shift is a call to embrace this fundamental interconnectedness and interdependence. This integration is not a simple blending or neutralizing of opposites, but a creative tension, a dynamic interplay that preserves difference while fostering unity. It requires a willingness to hold paradox without rushing to resolve or dismiss it. The individual must learn to sit with discomfort, ambiguity, and uncertainty. This patience with paradox opens a space where new understanding and synthesis can emerge, transcending the limitations of rigid dualism. The tension between opposites often manifests as inner conflict. The individual may feel torn between desires, values, or identities that seem incompatible. For example, there may be a pull between the safety of the known and the risk of the unknown, between dependence and autonomy, or between duty and personal fulfillment. This internal tug-of-war can produce anxiety, confusion, and a sense of fragmentation. Yet these struggles are precisely the psychic material necessary for integration. They reveal where healing and transformation are needed. Before a major life shift, the psyche may intensify these conflicts to push the individual toward conscious reconciliation. The pressure of living with unresolved opposites becomes unbearable, demanding attention and action. This intensification is an act of psychic compassion. It disrupts complacency and invites engagement with deeper truths. The individual is asked to move beyond polarized thinking and to cultivate a more inclusive and flexible approach to self-understanding. The process of reconciling opposites involves embracing the shadow aspects of the self that have been rejected or disowned because they contradict the ego's preferred identity. For instance, someone who identifies strongly with order and control may need to acknowledge and integrate their chaotic, impulsive side. Similarly, an individual who prides themselves on rationality may need to engage with their emotional and intuitive nature. This integration enriches the personality, making it more complex and resilient. The reconciliation of opposites also touches on the balance of masculine and feminine energies within the psyche. These energies are not simply related to biological sex, but represent archetypal qualities present in everyone. The masculine archetype is often associated with logic, action, and structure, while the feminine archetype is linked to intuition, receptivity, and nurturing. A healthy psyche requires a dynamic balance of these energies, allowing each to inform and support the other. Before a major life shift, an individual may experience imbalances or conflicts between these energies, highlighting the need for integration. Spiritually, this reconciliation reflects a universal principle found in many traditions. The union of opposites is the path to enlightenment, healing, and wholeness. This principle is not abstract or distant, but practical and lived. It calls for a transformation in perception, from seeing the world as divided and oppositional to perceiving it as interconnected and interdependent. This shift in perception underlies the profound changes that accompany major life transitions. Emotionally, reconciling opposites fosters greater tolerance and compassion. When the psyche integrates conflicting parts of itself, it becomes less judgmental and more accepting of complexity in others. This expanded compassion supports healthier relationships and a deeper sense of connection with the world. It softens the rigid boundaries that isolate and alienate, opening the way for empathy and mutual understanding. This reconciliation is also a source of creative vitality. The energy generated by the tension of opposites can be harnessed for innovation, problem-solving, and artistic expression. The individual who embraces paradox and complexity is more adaptable and resourceful, able to navigate the uncertainties and ambiguities of life with grace and courage. This creative potential is often dormant until stirred by the challenge of transformation. The journey toward reconciling opposites is not linear or straightforward. It involves setbacks, resistance, and repeated attempts. The ego may cling to familiar dichotomies as a way of maintaining control and avoiding vulnerability. The unconscious may resist integration, fearing loss of identity or coherence. Yet the psyche persistently calls for this work, knowing that wholeness cannot be achieved without it. Practical engagement with opposites may take many forms. It can involve exploring conflicting emotions, reflecting on contradictory beliefs, or experimenting with new ways of being that transcend old categories. Dialogue with trusted others can illuminate blind spots and offer fresh perspectives. Rituals, art, and symbolic practices may also support this integration by connecting the individual with deeper layers of meaning and experience. An important aspect of this process is the cultivation of inner dialogue, a conscious conversation between opposing parts of the self. This dialogue allows each aspect to be heard and validated, reducing internal conflict and fostering cooperation. Through this dialogue, the individual gains insight into the motivations, fears, and needs underlying each pole of the opposition. This understanding lays the groundwork for synthesis and healing. Before a major life shift, this reconciliation prepares the individual for the new identity and way of being that will emerge. It ensures that the transformation is not merely a superficial change, but a deep reorganization of the psyche that honors complexity and unity. The resulting self is more integrated, flexible and whole, capable of meeting life's challenges with wisdom and resilience. The reconciliation of opposites also involves a surrender to mystery and the unknown. It acknowledges that some tensions may not be fully resolved, but can be held creatively within the self. This surrender is a form of trust in the unfolding process of life and psyche. It invites openness to paradox and a willingness to embrace uncertainty as a natural and fertile dimension of existence. This process is closely linked to the experience of liminality, the threshold state in which one is between the old and the new. In this liminal space, opposites are particularly vivid and unstable, yet it is also a place of possibility and transformation. Navigating this space requires courage, openness, and the capacity to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Ultimately, the reconciliation of opposites is a profound expression of the psyche's intelligence and its drive toward balance and wholeness. It is a testament to the complexity of human nature and the richness of the inner world. Before a major life shift, this reconciliation becomes a vital foundation for transformation, enabling the individual to step into a new way of being that honors all aspects of the self and the world. This integrative process challenges the individual to transcend simplistic narratives of good and bad, right and wrong, success and failure. It invites a more expansive vision of selfhood that embraces paradox and mystery. In doing so, it opens the path to deeper freedom, creativity, and fulfillment. By engaging fully with the tensions and contradictions within, the individual prepares for the emergence of a more authentic and complete self. This emergence is not the end, but a new beginning, an ongoing journey of integration, growth, and discovery. The psyche's call to reconcile opposites before a major life shift is therefore both a challenge and an invitation to embrace the fullness of life in all its complexity and to step courageously into the unknown with trust and openness. As we come to the close of this reflection on what the psyche reveals before a major life shift, it is clear that transformation is a profound journey into the depths of our being. The path demands courage to face the unconscious, to embrace the shadow, to listen to the inner voices that call us toward change, and to reconcile the many opposites within us. Through this process, we do not lose ourselves, but rather find a more authentic, integrated and whole self prepared to meet the challenges and possibilities of a new chapter. This journey, though often difficult and unsettling, is ultimately a testament to the resilience and wisdom of the human spirit, a call to awaken, to heal and to grow. May you find strength and clarity as you navigate the threshold of transformation. Trust in the process, honor your inner world, and welcome the fullness of your being with compassion and openness. Good luck on this courageous journey toward wholeness and renewal. Thank you for your attention and willingness to engage with these deep truths. May your path be illuminated by insight and your heart filled with peace.